What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with another comedy song, or sort of novelty song. Indeed, after I reacted to the Tom T-Bone Stankus song Existential Blues, it got me thinking about sort of my youth of listening to Dr. Demento, and there was another tune that had always stuck out to me, which I first heard on one of the old radio broadcasts, probably late 80s, maybe early 90s. And that is a song, I think, from the 1960s by Tom Lehrer called Elements. And this is a song, I believe he, like Tom T-Bone Stankus, was sort of an was an educator and someone who worked in teaching, but also dabbled with music. And I think in the 50s and 60s, Tom Lehrer made a lot of songs, comedy, but I do believe eventually some of his songs sort of addressed more like social and political issues, often in a humorous way, but still very much addressing some of the issues of the day. And I do think his sort of takes on these issues were sort of liberal, but I also remember reading that, he was sort of put off by some of the more extreme sort of representatives of the counterculture movement and so on. So I think by the end of the 1960s, he kind of moved on and he stopped making music. I think he just returned to teaching, or I think, in fact, in sort of the opposite of Tom T-Bone Stankus, I think he quit music so he could focus on teaching, whereas Tom T-Bone Stankus had gone the other way. He had been teaching and making music and eventually decided to stop teaching so he could focus on music. But I think Tom Lehrer went back into teaching. I think to this very day, he's still involved in like math education or something like that. I do think he's quite old now. But yeah, this was always a song that not only amused me in the way that it employs the melody from the major modern general from the Pirates of Penzance, if you know what that is, Gilbert and Sullivan, but ultimately it's his ability to go through these names of the periodic table, the chemical elements, including a number of words that are not so easy to say just at a simple, one breath shot at it, but he, runs them all together impressively and in a very tongue-twisting way. So yeah, here we go. This is Tom Lehrer, Elements, which I first heard on the Dr. Demento show.
Hydrogen and oxygen and nitrogen and rhenium and nickel, neodymium, neptunium, germanium and iron, americium, ruthenium, uranium, europium, zirconium, lutetium, vanadium and lanthanum and osmium and astatine and radium and gold, protactinium and indium and gallium and iodine and thorium and thulium and thallium. There's yttrium, ytterbium, actinium, rubidium and boron, gadolinium, niobium, iridium and strontium and silicon and silver and samarium and bismuth, bromine, lithium, beryllium and barium. There's holmium and helium and hafnium and erbium and phosphorus and francium and fluorine and terbium and manganese and mercurium, molybdenum and magnesium, dysprosium and scandium and cerium and cesium and lead, praseodymium and platinum, plutonium, palladium, promethium, potassium, polonium and tantalum, technetium, titanium, tellurium and cadmium and calcium and chromium and curium. There's sulfur, californium, and fermium, berkelium, and also mendelevium, titanium, nobelium, and argon, krypton, and radon, xenon, zinc, and rhodium, and chlorine, carbon, cobalt, copper, tungsten, tin, and sodium. These are the only ones of which the news has come to Harvard, and there may be many others, but they haven't been discovered.
I'd just like to add that I'm a scientific Solarian. If any of you know that reference. Regardless, I love that tune. Short and sweet, but goes through all the elements in a way that my brain and mouth would never be able to synchronize well enough to articulate in that way. Not only that, I don't have a good singing voice, but yeah, it just always amused me. And I love the idea of taking sort of very technical, arcane, scientific subject matter and turning it into a fun, sort of comedic song. So yeah, I've always enjoyed that. Let me know what you think. Not too much to say about it. It just is literally a listing of all the chemical elements. But yeah, shout out to Tom Lehrer. As I said, I think he's still around, still teaching these days, or at the very least, spent many years teaching, decades teaching after he had sort of left the music industry. So in any case, let me know what you think. Other than that, thank you for listening and watching. I do appreciate it. Have a good day, have a good night, and I'll see you next time.